It's not always a great time to buy real estate, and right now is one of those times. And I'm not saying that because I believe that the housing market is going to crash. I'm saying that because housing affordability is still at one of the worst levels that we've ever seen. So the question of whether you should buy now or wait depends on what you're waiting for. And in today's video, we're going to talk about the housing market. We're going to talk about the idea of buying now, the idea of waiting, and more importantly, we're going to discuss the idea of housing affordability. What makes housing more affordable? Because if you're sitting on the sidelines renting, waiting for housing to become more affordable, then it's important that you understand the factors that make up housing affordability. And while we have seen house prices pull back and price reductions increase, it's still less affordable than a year ago due to higher interest rates. Interest rates this time last year were sitting around 3.5%. Today, we're sitting around 6%. And while home prices have declined in several areas between 5 and 10%, it's still much more expensive today to buy that home because of how much interest rates affect your monthly payment. At the same time, rents remain high after cooling at the fastest pace we've seen in nearly 2 years, on top of apartment leasing traffic plunging as rent slows. So rent growth is slowing, but rents overall aren't really decreasing. So if you're considering renting while you wait, just understand rent prices are likely going to continue to move sideways to up in many areas. Now, if you've heard me say on other videos, renting is buying patience until you're ready to buy a home. And I truly believe that. It's okay to rent property, but just understand, while you're renting, you're still paying a mortgage. You're just paying the landlord's mortgage instead of your own. And while the Rocket CEO says it's not a buyer or a seller's market, it's an even market, most people out there want to know, when will housing become more affordable? Now, before we dive into that, I want to take a minute and ask a favor. Hit the thumbs up if you're finding any value in this video at all, and feel free to subscribe to the channel to stay updated on everything real estate related. So the question is, what makes homes more affordable? If that's the reason that you're waiting, it's important to understand this. Well, there's 3 different things that really make up housing affordability. And the first one is wages. And while we've seen wage and job growth both slow, we've actually seen jobless claims edge down, which shows that employment out there is still strong. A major contributing factor to wage increases is that many baby boomers, 76 million Americans born between 1946 and 1964, are finally departing the workforce. With no replacement for these workers, the resulting labor shortage keeps pressure on employers to attract and retain workers with high wages, which in turn contributes to higher inflation. And that's a big reason why employment has stayed strong, because so many of the boomers, those near retirement age, left the workforce early and left a lot of available jobs out there. But with that said, I do believe that employment will continue to slow and likely push our unemployment number up and ultimately lead us into a recession. So yes, wages have been strong, which has helped out with housing affordability. In fact, that's allowed a lot of people to actually purchase homes over the last couple of years because of those increase in wages. Well, we now know that's likely to continue slowing, which is going to put a further strain on people trying to buy homes as well as housing affordability. The second factor that makes up housing affordability is interest rates, mortgage rates. And while interest rates are currently sitting at 4-month lows, they are still considerably higher than they were just a year ago. And a large part of that had to do with the Fed raising the Fed funds rate. It all started back in March of last year, and it got really aggressive in June and July when they started the 3/4 point hikes. But since then, we've actually seen inflation come down for the 6th straight month. And along with it, we've seen interest rates come down, which has ultimately helped housing affordability, but not to the level that most people want to see. Now, with that said, I do believe that you're going to continue to see inflation numbers come down, and I also believe that you're going to see interest rates come down, but not nearly as fast as interest rates went up. So over the next couple of months, as inflation numbers come out, you're going to see interest rates move sideways, maybe go down a little bit, maybe go up a little bit. They're likely to trade in a range, which means that if you're considering buying a house now or waiting a couple of months, housing affordability is probably not going to change much when it comes to interest rates. Now, here's a chart that I found online that actually shows the number of people that can qualify for a mortgage at different rates. And I think it's super interesting because you can see exactly how many people are impacted by these higher rates. And as interest rates come down, you can see that the number of people that qualify for these mortgages increases substantially, which in turn creates more competition in the market, more buyer demand, at a time when it also helps stabilize home prices. And that brings me into the third factor that contributes to housing affordability, and that's house prices. Now, we have seen house prices come down substantially off the peak that we saw in May of last year, but for most people out there, they're not seeing the crash that they were hoping for. They're not seeing foreclosures flood to the market. They're not seeing these great deals all over the place where they thought they were going to be able to buy a house for cents on the dollar. And while I realize we're still in the early stages of a lot of this unfolding, the likelihood of housing prices crashing is very, very low. So if you really want housing affordability to improve, you really need to cheer for lower interest rates, because lower interest rates affect your monthly payment way more than a lower house price. And while I realize most people out there want the best of both worlds, they want the lower interest rate and the lower house price, the reality of both of them happening at the same time is very, very low. So the real question is, if you plan on buying a house, when should you purchase it? Should it be in a week? Should it be in 2 weeks? Is there a perfect time of year to buy a house? And the easy answer is no, but there are a couple of things happening in the market right now that could benefit you as a potential home buyer. And the first thing is inventory starting to increase. As you can see from this graph here, you can see that inventory is starting to increase. But more importantly, what I want you to pay attention to in this graph is the historical trend over the last couple of years of when inventory actually comes on the market, because it's not just a few-year trend. This is typically how inventory comes on the market every year. As we start to move into February, mid-February, we start to see more properties. Through the spring selling season, inventory picks up, and it usually peaks during the middle to the latter part of summer, at which point it starts to retrace as we head into the holidays. And this chart supports that. So what you're likely to see from this point forward is more inventory continue to come to the market. Now, the biggest difference in this year versus years past is that a lot of people out there have locked in super low interest rate, which in turn means they have a super low mortgage payment. And if they're considering selling that property, they have to really want to move, because house prices are likely higher than where they purchased, and interest rates are likely higher than where they finance their mortgage. And because of that, that could actually keep inventory levels lower than we've seen over the last couple of years. But the idea here is that inventory is likely going to continue increasing. And this is coming at a time when KB Homes has just announced that they had a 68% cancellation rate in December when it comes to new construction, which is an absolutely crazy number. And the primary reason for that is because you have some buyers out there that just don't qualify to buy homes because of how much interest rates increased, right? Maybe they went under contract in the early part of 2022 and the house was actually completed in the fourth quarter. And when it came time to close, they just couldn't close because they no longer qualified. And on top of that, you had people that did qualify, but were looking at it going, there's no way I'm buying this house because house prices have definitely decreased since the time I went under contract. So I'm not moving forward. I'm willing to walk away from my deposit and just see where housing goes. And because of that, we've seen builder incentives increase. What is a builder incentive? It's when they lower the price. It's when they offer a credit towards closing costs. They offer a credit to help you buy down your interest rate. And as you can see from this graph here, 16% of builders out there haven't had to do any price reductions at all, where 23% have had to decrease between 1 and 5%, and 34% have had to decrease somewhere between 6 and 10%. And you can see from the numbers here, 4% of builders out there have actually had to do a decrease larger than 20%. So if you're in a market that has a lot of new construction, this offers the best opportunity as a buyer in 2023, because builders aren't in the business of holding on to homes. They want to free up that capital. They want to move on to the next project. They want to get their money back, if you will. And on top of that, there's 5.5 months of inventory that's going to be completed with regards to new construction in the second half of 2023, which is going to add to this surplus. And so these builders are scurrying, trying to get rid of the current inventory so they can make way for new inventory as it comes on the market. Now, if you want to see the regional breakdown of these areas where they've had to do these price incentives, if you will, do me a favor and check out this graph here. As you can see, it's the Southwest, Texas, Northwest, NorCal, as well as Southern California. Now, I'm here in Southern California, And we don't have a lot of new construction here in Orange County, but Southern California as a whole, that also includes Riverside, San Bernardino, and some of these areas have had a lot of new construction. So if you're a buyer out there, these would be the areas that I would focus on as a potential first-time home buyer, assuming that's where I wanted to live. So the question of should you buy now or should you wait depends on where you are in your life, depends on your situation. This time last year, the market was moving so fast that if you waited to buy, the next house that came on the market was going to cost you more money. But right now, things are different. I don't think there's a rush to go out and buy a property, but at the same time, I believe that if you can find the right property and the payment makes sense to you, you have money in the bank, and more importantly, you have a longer term time horizon. You plan to be in that property for 5, 7, even 10 years, then I think it's a good time to become a homeowner. Did you know homeowners have a 44 times greater net worth than those of renters? And it all comes back to real estate. It's that long-term generational wealth that real estate creates. Now, I know a lot of people are watching this video going, Jeb, you're a real estate agent. Of course, you're going to tell people to buy homes because it benefits you. It doesn't benefit me. My channel is nationwide, so there's people all over the place watching this video, and I only serve here in Southern California. So if somebody goes buys a property across the US, it doesn't benefit me. But my channel is all about education, and that's what I'm trying to provide here. But if you are a first-time home buyer just starting the process, not sure where to start, you know you want to buy a home but unsure of the process, I created a first-time home buyer course to educate, empower, and guide you through the process. And if you're interested in checking that out, do me a favor and check the link below. Buying a home should never be about picking the top or the bottom in the market. It should be buying when it's the right time in your life. So when you're contemplating the idea of whether you should buy now or wait, you should really focus on what you're trying to accomplish, where you see yourself in the next couple of years, and ultimately use that as a jumping off point to decide whether or not buying a house is right for you. And lastly, if you are planning on buying a house, not sure where to start in the process, what should you do? Do me a favor and check out this video here.